This podcast is an expression of the personal views and opinions of the hosts and guests, and they do not represent the official stance of the podcast, its sponsors, or affiliated organizations. The podcast may cover topics such as drugs, mental illness, politics, and religion, which can be controversial or sensitive. The podcast does not support any illegal activities and advises listeners to seek help from appropriate professionals for any personal concerns related to these topics. The information provided in the podcast is for general informational purposes only, and it is not a substitute for professional advice. Listeners are urged to consult with a qualified healthcare professional for any questions regarding their mental or physical health. The podcast and its creators are not responsible for any loss or harm resulting from the use or reliance on the information provided in the podcast.
Now recording.
Turn my mic up.
All right. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Street Stoic podcast. I'm your co-host, Nate. Joining me today is the other co-host, Jay. Jay, what's up?
What's really good? Nothing much, man. Just enjoying life.
That's right. Just quick recap for everybody. This is episode 3. We're on episode 3 right now.
Three is correct.
Yeah, so that means episode 2, we talked about a couple of important things. If y'all listened to that one, or if you didn't and you're interested in these things I'm about to tell you, go ahead and check that out. So first thing we kind of talked about was amor fati. It's one of the Latin phrases that Stoics used. That's basically just love your fate. Love the hand that fate deals you, right? We went into depth in that the last episode, so that's not the focus this time. After amor fati, we hit memento mori. It was pretty awesome, not gonna lie. Both pretty emotionally tied, but those are things that help drive us forward, right? So, pretty awesome podcast. So for today, we are picking up right where we left off. At the end of episode 2, we talked about how we wanted to discuss a little bit of, the history behind Stoicism. I can't recall, but we probably mentioned one of the founders of Stoicism was Zeno. He was one of the founding fathers. So between that episode and this episode, Jay and I had done a little bit of research. I think Jay probably did a little bit more than me because he's good at that. I saw some interesting stuff. So real quick, we're just going to talk about, and I said the history of Stoicism and Zeno, but really those two things are greatly tied together. And I think here in a couple seconds, we're going to really find out why. We're not going to go super into depth about the history in Zeno, especially during this podcast. I think both Jay and I highly recommend, if any of this stuff that we cover in the podcast interests you, please do your own research. When you're reading it, it's going to mean something different to you. Different things are going to speak out to you, which are important in this Stoic journey, right? So either way, we're going to cover a few things that stuck out to us, and then we're going to start talking about quotes because that's what we're here to do. I think the general consensus going forward is we're going to probably pick a few quotes or one. I don't really know. And it'll also probably depend on the feedback, but we'll talk about that quote, kind of dissect it. What does it mean? What it means to each of us, because there's two different views, which is awesome. And then, how could we apply it? Basic application to life. And if we've already applied it or tried, embodying whatever that philosophy is, how it worked out for us. So if we have stories, we love sharing them with you guys. If not, it'll just be like a theory, but you better bet this is what we're trying to live by. So, with that said, Jay, what did we find out about the history of Stoicism in Zeno?
Let me pull up my book report here that I put together.
Yeah, buddy. I love it. I love it.
I pretty much just kind of hyper focused on a lot of this stuff and just try to cram it in, kind of make sure that I absorb some of this information that I was seeing, reading, and going out of my way just to kind of learn this stuff. It's pretty interesting. I mean, I've had that conversation with you privately about how I'm so into like ancient civilization cultures and just kind of studying
Yeah,
that. And I've gotten into Egyptology, stuff about, Aztecs, Mayans, Incas. Greeks have always been the ones that I just never shown too much interest in the past. And so now that I'm learning this stuff and everything is new and fresh, I'm learning a lot and I'm actually enjoying it. So
for
with
sure.
so with what I found out with Zeno, right? Zeno
Whoa,
of
whoa, whoa. So slow your roll before we get into the Zeno. You said something that caught my attention, bruh. And you said something along the lines of you were not interested in the history of Greece and Greeks and stuff like that. Why is that?
I think I've actually thought about that because I question a lot of things.
Right,
One thing that maybe I can self-analyze with it was the culture, the history seems to be so just rich, and it was kind of intimidating to say the least to be able to dive into something like that. I don't know. I saw too many names that I couldn't pronounce, I guess, and I was just like, no, this is a
for
little
sure.
too much. I don't know. I thought with I this is I mean I'm answering my own question in my head right now when I was about to say that, there's too
Right.
much like mythology to it, and I'm thinking, oh, there's
Yeah,
mythology to Egyptian culture too, and to all the other cultures. So I don't know. I just that and the ancient culture, as far as sorry, the Chinese ancient culture is something that I've also haven't dived into a
right.
lot. But it's something that
Yeah,
interests me and I would like to learn, but I don't know where to start from. Where I would be able to pick
right.
up a lot of the main, fundamental information about their history and their culture, and things have changed a lot through time. So it's kind of hard to try to pinpoint where to pick up from, and which part of the culture started here, and for
Where do I start?
yeah,
Right.
where do I start?
Yep. And thank you for answering that question, Jay. I know we kind of, for everybody listening, we kind of try to plan these episodes out just so it's a little bit nicer for everybody. This question was not planned, so Jay's probably, if we were in the same room, he'd be kicking me under the table. But I think it's important because, what's up, Jay?
I don't know. I'm taking these things as challenges, man, and I'm as
For
keep throwing
sure.
them. I'm gonna try to keep swinging at them, man.
Exactly, and you did an excellent job. And what I think the greatest piece of that was is that it relates to a lot of our listeners. For those of you that don't know, I'm pretty sure Jay will conclude the podcast today talking about a little community that we started in Discord that's going. I think it's excellent. However, already starting to interact with people who are new to Stoicism or have been doing it for a little while. Just like Jay's experience, whatever that is, it can be overwhelming. You look at this thing, where do I start? Right? That's something that we all have in common. It's like we know we've got this problem or this weakness or whatever you want to call it. It really doesn't matter. Whatever this barrier is in front of you, as Marcus talks about it, it's the obstacle, and that's the way, right? You just have to start. There's a lot of stuff to go through, but just pick a small spot and then it just starts webbing out and getting a lot bigger. So that's kind of going to be the consensus of this episode here. We're just going to go over a little bit of history. That's just to get that web starting. And then each episode, when we talk about all these different quotes, realize that the center is based on basically what we talk about in episode 3. All right, Jay, enough from me. What do we learn about the history of Stoicism and Zeno?
All right, so Zeno went by the name of, or was called Zeno of Citium, for the birthplace for Zeno, which was Citium, Cyprus, which is an island in the Mediterranean that is, or at least at the time, I'm not sure, I didn't check current standings for their what country
Right.
is the one that is in control of, but they were part of Greece back in the ancient times when
Right.
my boy Zeno was around. So Zeno was described, and it's still kind of up in the air whether he was or not a Phoenician.
Right.
He ended up in Athens by shipwreck on
Yeah.
the island, and that's where he ended up. And the man went on to become the founder of Zenoism, which eventually ended up becoming Stoicism. Which is kind of funny because that name Stoa actually is a location in which the philosophers taught their students, and it was kind of like an open corridor with pillars and just a roof on the top. So you could just imagine a building with kind of just barely any walls, and you're just out there being taught back, almost 2,000 years ago, and they're learning all these things.
Yeah.
So Stoicism eventually, came out of Zenoism, and the philosophies that were the foundation of it are based in, logic, physics, and ethics.
Yeah. They call it like logos or something, right?
Right. That's the term that I read there as well, logos.
Yeah.
Zeno lived to be still kind of up in the air as far as records go, but around 71, 72 years old. And the man had a trip, fell, and shouted out a quote and held his breath and died. And that was his legacy. He just died.
What?
After falling down, shaking his fist at the air and saying a quote, and just died.
What the heck, bro?
Yeah, crazy stuff.
I read part of that, but I didn't read too much into it. That's funny.
Yeah,
it's
interesting stuff.
I don't know about you, but I'm like a very visual person. Like as adults, they talk about how we're audio visual kinesthetic learners. We're primarily one, have a secondary. Sometimes that tertiary is just the smallest little bit. Either way, I'm reading this stuff about Zeno, and even when you were talking about it, you were like, this place, the reason why it's called Stoicism now, I don't know how to pronounce it. It was like Stoa Pikake. I don't remember how you say it. Yokel.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, whatever that is, and I'm sure somebody's gonna call us out for not knowing how to say it, and I'm thankful that they're gonna do it, because then from then on I'm gonna be able to pronounce it. But anyways, you're describing it visually, right? Like it's just this open area, and they've got these pillars and this roof, and it's just outside, and I'm thinking, dang, it must have been cold in the winter.
I'm actually thinking the opposite. I'm like, damn, it must be hot. I wonder if it gets muggy there. They're wearing those togas and just sweating underneath. That must be getting stuck to their body with the sweat.
Bro, and all the togas that we see in current media are all white, so it's like a white t-shirt contest, freaking, for an entire summer.
I have a feeling those things I bet those things look dirty. I don't think those things could have stayed clean.
Right. Anyway, yeah, and I'm trying to like build the image of what this Stoa place or whatever it's called in my mind, right? And I'm like, my mind is visually grabbing different images, and I'm grabbing images from uh when you remember that movie 300?
Yeah.
King Leonidas's wife, she goes to the city. I don't remember they were, but they're like the politics or whatever. And she's like asking for more troops, and it's in this place with pillars, and it's open. And it only has a roof. And I'm like, okay, it's got to be similar to that, but they had seats. I don't know if this place had seats. And then, that Hercules, that animated cartoon show growing up. I'm like pulling scenes from that like into my mind. Like he's, in the beginning when Hercules is like knocking over all the pillars of the building and is crashing down. And I'm just like, man, I don't think it was anything like this. But
Yeah,
it's just
probably
fun.
not. But what you just did was something that I kind of describe to people sometimes and tell them like, that a lot of the things that are based on your history and everything that you learned from birth till now. And when you start thinking of certain things, you're basically going back to your memory bank and trying to associate something that you learned in the past to what you're hearing. And so what you were telling me, you're going back to all these different shows about, had something to do with Greek culture or Romans. And that's the vision that you're seeing to attach to this, because that's of the visual stuff that you've recorded as far as how that time supposedly looked, how, people talked in that era, or, XYZ. And
Yep.
that it goes like that for everything. For everything,
Yep.
everyone develops their perception, their perspective from things that they've learned and how they're applying it to whatever it is that's happening in front of them, because that's all they know. That's all they know.
Yep. Yep. So, yeah, I think, all right, so we covered Stoicism, or Stoicism, the history of Stoicism. We covered Zeno. He's basically the father. He used to be called, what was it, Zenoism, right?
Yeah,
Before they
Zenoism.
just associated. What's that?
Yeah, it's, Zenoism. That's what his whole school, the
Philosophy was.
philosophy was started under, and then just with time and the fact that, I guess it was kind of like a slang or just a way of just a nickname to
Right.
just change it to Stoicism because of the location of where they were actually doing
Right.
these teachings, and the students were learning there. The other
Right.
interesting thing is, while digging into this stuff about Stoicism, about the history, about this philosopher, that philosopher, and timelines, I'm picking up other things that I'm like, okay, but what is this? And then there's all these other
Right.
different philosophies or thoughts of approaching life that were also around back then, that were competing, or not in a sense competing, but were also available. And people were going towards one or the other, and I'm not sure if anybody was applying multiples, going to Stoicism, going to cynicism, and going to other ones to develop a form of, I guess, in a sense, kind of the self-help or an enlightenment for themselves. Who knows? But it's very interesting to see that there's so many other different kind of philosophies, or just a grouping of lessons and just a way of conducting yourself and living. And that's how it still is. There's all these different avenues, but a lot of times it seems that they still have those ground roots, or those kind of the foundations, like I had mentioned, that are based on logic, physics, and ethics. I
Right.
kind of see it in a lot of other, either self-help people, gurus, people online, giving their, uh, their professional evaluations of,
Right. Yeah.
of
Yeah.
mental stuff and whatnot.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, when I was looking into it, and I don't know this for a fact by any means, but the thing that I kind of gathered and just, I guess, my hypothesis until I do further research would be that they were just philosophers. And school could mean different things. Like you can have a school of thought, like it's an accumulation of, similar directed thoughts. And then, these places they were teaching, like the Stoa, whatever, um, and it talked about schools. I think it was just a place for people to speak and converse as like a group discussion type thing. And they were schools of thought, and people could learn from those philosophers and be able to ask questions from those philosophers. And the application of these ideas, they were practiced in that area under uh under like guidance, I guess, of these who were thought of as professional philosophers, I guess. Because I think it's interesting, you were talking about Zeno's backstory a little bit and how he got in a shipwreck. I read something very similar. He, was this kind of like rich kid, had a good education from Greece. He became a merchant, and then he lost everything in that shipwreck. And he later was in a like some sort of like bookstore type thing, and he was looking for a book from Socrates because that's what he was trying to learn. And Socrates is not, yes, he's a philosopher, but he's not considered a Stoic, right? Because he came before Zenoism and Stoicism. Socrates was a great philosopher, but that's who Zeno modeled himself after, right? And then while he was, trying to look for those scriptures or writings of Socrates, that I think some sort of cynic was walking by, and whoever was selling those writings ended up pointing Zeno in that guy's direction, who later became his mentor. And, if that guy's a cynic, that means that technically Zeno was studying a philosophy of cynicism, which, is partly the roots of Stoicism. So, I mean, I don't think as a whole, like when you're diving into the Stoic thing, first off, you're probably focusing a lot on Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. Probably a little bit of Zeno. There's not a whole lot of stuff left from Zeno just because of that time frame and everything was lost, but really doesn't matter. Like you can find, like once you learn, I guess, like the heart and soul of Stoicism, it doesn't matter if something is labeled Stoic. You'll just be able to realize that it's a Stoic idea or philosophy, and maybe not intentionally, but just the essence of it is Stoic. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I agree. Just to kind of give info on that cynic that you were talking about, his name was Crates or Crates of Thebes. He was the cynic that was kind of the mentor for Zeno.
Right, that's right. Yeah, I somewhat remember that. So anyways, let's start getting into quotes, because all this history stuff, there's like so many different things to talk about. I don't want to bore anybody with a bunch of like history lessons. Let's just talk about how something can apply to us.
What up, listeners? We wanted to take a moment and express our gratitude for your support and for taking the time to tune into our podcast. We value your feedback and recommendations, and we'd love to hear your stories about how Stoicism or any other self-improvement practice has impacted your journey. Please send your stories or any info you'd like to share with us to thestreetstoics@gmail.com. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at The Street Stoics to stay connected and receive latest updates. If you enjoy our content, please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing with others. Thank you again for being part of our community.
So, a quote, I really had to dig on this Zeno stuff, just because there's not a whole lot available. But the quote from Zeno that I recall was interesting because I thought the internet was lying to me. It said, and when you start looking up Zeno or the history of Stoicism, you're gonna find that Zeno was actually called a few different names. It was like Zeno of Mediterranean and Zeno from Zeno shipwreck, and then later Zeno of Citium and whatever. But the one that I found was from Zeno's shipwreck, and it was let me think of it. I don't want to ruin it. It's only once you've lost everything that you are free to do anything. So I'm just going to let that sit in for a second. And I guarantee some of you right now are breaking the silence like that's from freaking Fight Club. Right? Like that's what I was saying when I read it. I was like, dude, that's from Fight Club. That's Chuck Palahniuk, or however you pronounce his last name. Palahniuk, I'm not sure. I don't remember. But
Dark Horse.
Tyler Durden was... What was that?
The Dark Horse Comics. The distributor of that comic book, the Fight Club.
Oh, gotcha.
Sorry, weird facts that I know.
No, that's great, bro, because it's gonna help us connect, So anyways, it's only once you've lost everything that you are free to do anything. And so later to come to find out, like once I started looking deep into that, it was like Fight Club this, Fight Club that, Fight Club Chuck, all stuff. And I was like, dude, no, that wasn't Zeno then. But if you start looking into Zeno's shipwreck, you'll find that quote is from Zeno. At least it's inspired by it. It's hard to say whether or not it's for sure Zeno because everything's translated funky. But either way, I think it's awesome. So what does that mean? It's only when you've lost everything that you are free to do anything. And the first consideration I ended up taking on that was the one from Tyler Durden. If we have this reason to live, it will manipulate how we act, respond, and live our life. Thus, freedom would be having nothing to live for. It's only when you've lost everything that you're free to do anything. Man, dude, that one, I don't know, dude. It was deep for me. You know what I mean? Because we think about it. What's that?
I think I might have a different interpretation to it in my head as far as what this is saying. To me, the way that I'm kind of applying it or kind of correlating it to, it's very much like amor fati.
Yeah.
That point in your life where you reach the acceptance of your fate, everything that has happened to you in your past, your baggage, your stress, your anxiety, your depression, your everything that you've been carrying around that has been holding you back from being the better person that you can be mentally. I think that's when you lose that and you're able to then start living. Right. Once you lose all of that and know that a lot of the things that we hold on to, baggage or just things that we put certain values into them, don't really matter. They don't really they don't stand weight in a lot of things, especially in everyday life reality. And once you start, breaking those shells and breaking yourselves out of those habits or valuing some things that really aren't worth that, then you start feeling like you are free, like you're able to live from that point on without having to worry about, oh, I can't have this, or I need to get that, or all the in more modern day sense, all the shit that's involved with society and everything that comes with it. If you're able to
Right.
disconnect from that and say, I don't need to live like that because it's not doing me any good, at that
Right.
point where you accept that, you're able to continue living from there without having to worry about all of those rules, those stupid certain rules that we have as a society, with how we should look in certain rooms, or how we should act certain times, just because people want to make certain rules to control people and don't want them to express themselves in certain ways that they shouldn't be denied. And so once you're able to break out of that, out of just not caring and not giving a fuck basically about what people think or say about you, or how they might view you, or just holding on to the shit from the past that just has been holding you down. Once you're able to break out of all of that, you're free, man. You're free.
Right.
'Cause you don't have any
Yeah.
of that weighing you down. You lost all of that. It's just,
Right.
my little. That's for some reason that's how I apply it. That's how as soon as I was hearing it, that's how I paired it with that.
I think that's perfect, bro. And that's exactly where I wanted to head. Initially, I was talking about when I first heard it, I was analyzing it through that Tyler Durden mind space. Like in the book, the movie, they kind of touched on it a little bit with the speech, and then he puts the chemical on his hand and he's like, you kind of got to get rid of it. But for those of you who didn't read the book or anything, like, remember Tyler Durden is the same character, and I guess we should have done trigger warning or spoiler alert
Oh
before.
no.
Oh
Spoiler
no.
alert.
Anyways, so two different characters, alter ego, and he has this apartment. It's IKEA, everything, and all this stuff, and it's a bunch of materialistic things because we care more about what other people think of us, and we think we can buy our happiness than what we care of how we think of ourselves. And so, anyways, that's just to clear up the whole Fight Club mindset of where I first dove in. And then, Jay, I loved what you said there and how you related it to we need to stop giving a fuck about what other people think about us. And basically, when I went to go into this further, I love quotes. So yeah, I'm going to pull out another one. Back to Marcus freaking Aurelius' Meditations. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius is quoted saying, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." And to me, that is exactly what you were describing, Jay. That is exactly what you were describing. We care more about our fucking hairdo, what car we drive, how our house looks, all this bullshit, and it doesn't fucking matter, right? Like that's what you were getting at.
Right. Those are the rules that I mean, the stupid society rules that certain
Right.
people live by, and they take their lives by that because they want to look a certain way. They want to have have people perceive them in a certain way, and because of that, it's not healthy for anybody. It's not healthy for a whole
No.
society to be that way. And to get to the point where you see it for what it is, and you see it for the nonsense that it is, that we value these things, and it's so just stupid that, oh, did you get the newest this, or did we get, are you wearing, what are you wearing, or what are you driving, all that's, it's dumb that we put that as a scale of how much worthy you are amongst a certain type of crowd because of what you have. That's to me a dumb rule, a dumb part of society
Right.
that it's not helping anybody. And once you're able to break out of that and not care for that type of stuff, man, so much. It's so easy. I don't have to worry about like how I look or how I appeal to nobody because I don't care. I don't give a damn. The only
Right.
opinion that matters to me is myself. And even then, I'm still my toughest critic. I have to fight that every day. And I have to stop thinking that other people are criticizing me as well. That's also part of it. Because the rules, stupid society rules brew. Because that's the other side of the coin where you feel that you are forcing other people to feel a certain way for the way that you might look or appeal. And so that's why people do that because of
Right.
that
Yep.
power that they might get, that ego that says, "Oh, look what I can do. I can make them look at me because of what I'm wearing or because of what I have." And that to someone who doesn't have that, it's still there, like an internalized, but in a negative way, because now you go out and you might not feel comfortable in what you're wearing because you feel like, oh, people are going to judge me. And that's what you think when you're out there. You're just thinking, he's probably looking at my stupid ass shirt that I came out with today. Or,
Yeah.
damn, man, he got better shoes than I do. He's probably looking at my shoes like, look what he's wearing. Those
Right.
are the stupid nonsense that doesn't help, man. And it's weird because once to where I'm at now and be able to see that and just see how just frustrating people can get with situations, and then I look at what they have and I'm like, yeah, you've put yourself into the situation by what the things that you have because you want to look a certain way, you want to appeal to a certain crowd, you want to fit in somehow, and you're doing this and you're just causing yourself stress because you're in the hole. Some people drive
Yep.
themselves into a hole to look or to appeal a certain or just to live a certain lifestyle that they probably there's no means to even achieve that for some people and they're still trying.
Right. Yep.
Sad. Sad.
Yep. And I think going along with this, right, like the heart of Stoicism, because that's kind of really the theme of this episode, is the heart of Stoicism is something along the lines of like happiness is like the ability to control our thoughts. I don't remember what that is. We can all look it up, and I'm sure that's going to be in a future episode. But I just want to ping off that for 2 seconds. Is the ability to control our thoughts, and we've all heard the philosophy growing up through a friend, whatever, of our thoughts control our emotions, and our emotions control our thoughts and our actions, which essentially controls our lives, right? So there is a Stoic quote, and maybe Jay, you can help me look this up real quick, but it was something along the lines of don't be heard complaining, not even to yourself. I believe that was Marcus. Jay's probably looking into it right now. But I think of that quote is the first initial step in starting to try to control our thoughts. Don't be heard complaining, not even to yourself. I feel like it's backwards. You shouldn't even complain to yourself. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, you don't even have to say it out loud. You're thinking it already, then you feel the emotion, your blood starts to boil a little bit more, right? Why? It does not have to affect you. You just control your thought, right? Maybe they had to go faster because they've got something going on. But don't be heard complaining. Walk that out. It just is. which I think we referenced in both the first and second episode. It just is. So by not allowing yourself in your mind to complain, you're not getting an emotional response from it. You're not going to say it out loud, which means, think about it. If 80% of communication is negative, complaining, right? But you're not, people around you, we all have to do the whole thing, consider your audience, right? But if you're never complaining even to yourself, people can't hear you do that. And the funniest thing is negativity is freaking infectious, right? Negative. You could be having just an okay day. You woke up, maybe you only hit the snooze alarm once. You go to work. Work's not super thrilling, but it ain't bad. And somebody on your freaking team is having a bad freaking day, and they say something to you, and bam! Next thing you know, you're pissed. We can talk about the you part later. Either way, I know you've all experienced that. The thing is, negativity is that infectious. Positivity is also infectious. And there could be that one person that's positive, even in the midst of chaos. And guess what? That's the person everyone remembers. Everyone remembers the person that you could count on when everything was going wrong. And guess what? Marcus Aurelius's freaking meditations, his journal, he was writing those things for all of his adult life almost. And guess what at the end? Was during the plague, and he was sick and dying. Talk about freaking calm and never be heard complaining, not even to yourself. That's his personal journal that none of us were meant to see, and he's not complaining. So when we all think, oh man, that'd be like almost impossible, guess what? There's proof it's not. And it's called Meditations from Marcus Aurelius. What do you think, Jay? What do you think about that quote?
Oh, just confirming too that was Marcus Aurelius with "Don't be
Gotcha.
overheard complaining, not even to yourself."
Right.
I definitely I heard this one probably when I was reading the book, and
Yeah.
it seems to have kind of stuck with me as far as a day to day, because I find myself in a lot of situations where I I always come out saying to myself, and sometimes I even tell like my wife or somebody, and I'll say, "Wow, normally I wouldn't have reacted that way in that situation." And yeah, there's instances now that things happen, and I'm telling myself, just don't complain about it. Just, it is what it is. You don't have to get frustrated about this. You don't have to bitch and moan about it. Just do it, or don't worry, it's not as difficult as you might think it is. So
Right.
there's definitely a lot less complaining, and I agree. I 100% agree. You waste too much time with that, with the complaining, with just being frustrated over certain things that we don't have control over. We don't have control over certain things, and we just have to accept that. And
Right.
just go, move, continue, because just sitting around complaining is not going to do anything but keep you in that place. Wherever it
Yeah.
is that you are at that moment, if you are complaining, you're wasting time. Now, know that there's different situations, different circumstances. This probably doesn't apply there. for the majority of times, if you can tell yourself, don't complain here, and it's something where the outcome is going to be beneficial for you, if you just stop complaining and do it, this is only for your own good. And what happens is you just grow stronger from that mentally to be able to then not easily get frustrated or easily feel like you need to complain or whine about a certain thing. Just practice continuously to tell yourself, I don't need to be frustrated. I don't need to complain about this. I don't need to feel this way about this, because there's another way of dealing with this. I don't have control, and that's okay. And
Right.
just being able to say these things to yourself in your head and just kind of not give in to that emotion that you are as a defense or as the reaction, because that's all you know how to react. If you're able to control that with just the thought of don't complain, and you're talking to yourself and that voice is strong enough to control that, you're there. And you can get there. Everyone just
Right.
needs to just practice it. Continuously practice it. You will fail. There will be people that will fail. Some people it'll probably click. And that's
Yeah.
okay. But you need to continue to push and continue to try, regardless of whether you fail once, 5 times, 10 times. Continue and don't give up. And keep trying. And use that as well for everything in your life that you're trying to accomplish. Don't give up.
Well, and let's talk about that too. Is that people are greatly afraid. We all fear failure, right? But the craziest part is failure is part of success. It's the stepping stones to success, right? You fail, great. What did you learn? And then that's the first step. Then you try again. You fail. Great. What's the second step? If you get, so many steps in, you get success. The real failure is when you meet success and then you don't look for the next step because you think you made it to the top. You got to keep climbing the stairs, my friends. We've never made it. Okay. And I think it'd be awesome. Oh, shoot. Maybe next time we can get into that Rudyard Kipling thing. I relate a lot of Stoicism to that freaking poem. Either way.
That's our next episode right there.
Dang, yes, that'd be awesome.
That's it. Next episode.
Yes. Dude, that might be like a 2-part episode. That poem is long.
Okay.
And there's a lot of stuff to talk about that I feel like, okay, anyways, getting back to the topic, we were talking about those little steps and everything and how to apply this whole, no complaining thing. And let me give you a little glimpse of what it looks like, because I got a little bit of experience practicing this one heavily. We're human people. We're never going to be perfect. Okay? So accept that from the beginning. That's part of the whole failure thing. Also, it's going to take some programming in your mind. Maybe we'll do an episode of like how we practice stoicism in our lives, a little how-to-ish type thing. Either way, for me, it's journaling. And if I don't do my morning journaling, which is setting up my day, preparing a little bit the night before too, then reviewing those goals in the morning, adding tasks to make sure I am more aware of how I want to be. That was the only thing that actually worked for me. And sadly, for whatever reason, for most of my life, I didn't appreciate journaling. I continue to quote unquote not like writing. But guess what? It freaking works. And all of a sudden I'm like drawn to it. And lately I've been doing it every day. And it's like it's not like I have to do this chore. It's like I want to do this to become a better person and to be the person my family and people around me need. And so when I first started doing this whole, okay, don't be heard complaining never, not even to yourself. What does that mean? Okay. And then it takes a while to kick in. You're going to complain throughout the day, right? Like it's natural. It's going to happen. One of those times you're complaining, you're going to be like, oh, that quote, that quote. Yeah, not even to myself. And then it's going to frustrate you because you're going to be like, oh man, like, but this is something that for real, blah, 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 fill in the blank. And you're going to try to come up with some sad excuse for it. But that's all it is. It's an excuse. Then the next time you're going to be complaining and you're like, oh yeah, yeah, the quote, the quote. And you're going to be like, oh shoot, okay. Don't be heard complaining. And then all of a sudden you're not fighting it anymore, but there's this obstacle that's in the way. And it's like all you're focusing on is that thing you were complaining about. And literally your focus of your brain is saying, don't think about the thing, which is exactly what you're thinking about, trying to not think about the thing, right? And I'm sure you all understand, and I'm sure you all been there about something, but that's exactly what's going to happen to you. And it's part of the process, right? That's why Marcus says the obstacle is the way. This tough time that you have processing this information and trying to apply whatever quotes you freaking want, whatever philosophy you want, whatever religious beliefs you want, you've all have experiences. It takes time and there is a process. The process is the way. And that's why I opened it up with failure are the stepping stones to start going up the stairs, right? Because everybody doesn't want to fail, but true failure is never really starting or not getting back up after we've taken a back step or fallen down, or if you think about it as failure, right? It's getting up one more time than you've fallen down. And we need to switch our mindset to more of like, if we missed something, and I think this was awesome. I think I got it from like a Jocko Willink video or something, but they're opportunities to learn and get better. Like if something that you like, oh man, like I wanted this job and I wanted this job really bad, and you interview, you did all these things, and then they picked someone else. And you get the no thank you call or email or whatever. That is an opportunity. And in the moment, it's very difficult to see that opportunity. But take a breath and realize now you have a little bit more time to prepare for the next one. A little bit more time to get better. A little bit more time. Maybe you need more experience. Whatever that is, it's an opportunity. How can I learn from that event? Also, if you didn't get the job, now you've got an inside peek of that interview process. Your preparation is now specific to their interrogation process, and you will better be prepared having that insider view. And that's just one specific example of job interviews, right? So think about applying that to all the little different things in your life. Writing, art, reading, whatever, stoicism. Those little journeys, those obstacles, those barriers that get in your way are all necessary to keep progressing up. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I completely agree, man. It's repetition. It's the same thing that they say with, you know, diets, with exercising, with just trying to be better in anything for yourself and or learning something. It's repetition. repetition until it just becomes normal, and then that's what sticks, you know. For some people it takes a while.
Yeah.
For some people it can happen in an instant. It varies. That's nothing that anyone seems to have control over. But the point is not to give up. The point is just push through. Fail. The part where you don't achieve it in a certain time frame that you were expecting it to, or the way that you were expecting it to come out. Don't give up. That's not the end. Like, you can continue pushing through it, continue at it until you find something you're more comfortable with in the outcome.
Great.
Yeah, that's just repetition.
Practice.
Just continuously keep doing it and don't give up.
I just realized how far we are into recording. You had a quote you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so just to continue on with, you just went off of a Marcus Aurelius quote. I decided to bring one up too. That's the be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. That one, to me, as of late, has become, let's say, in a sense, it's become personal to me. And the reason why that's become personal to me is because I feel that as far as this skill, ability, whatever it is now, to have mental control over emotions and feelings and the way that I act or react to certain things. For a moment in time, I've had something like this before happen to me. 11 years ago. And at that time, it kind of got, I don't know, it was a few things that happened there, but the main thing is, back then I was trying to tell people, do better for yourselves. Like, you guys need to stop doing this and this and this and this. You guys should be doing this to improve yourselves. And that doesn't help. A lot of people don't want to be talked to or heard. They don't want to hear that type of just that kind of conversation where someone's telling you, like, hey man, you're not doing good and it shows, and maybe you should stop, doing all this stuff because it's not helping you. Some people aren't receptive to that. Some people it's just their journey to get to where they need to get to has to come from within. It has to come from them. They have to want to decide to find this kind of part of their journey to say, I'm going to start doing something to improve myself. I need to stop doing XYZ. And it's not based on somebody, telling them or trying to make them see or feel this, that they're doing something wrong or the way that they're living isn't good. So with that, I've learned that the person that you should be the most strictest on is yourself, because that is the main person that this journey is about, and it's about yourself. To be able to learn, to have control, to be able to find yourself in those moments where you're able to have a favorable outcome, where it's not something negative, where you can achieve the things that you've been wanting to achieve. Being able to do that in a way should be the demonstration that is required, or that should happen. Be able to say, look what I'm doing, or that I did for myself, and other people to say, wow, he's doing something that actually works.
Right.
And then they show their interest if they decide. And so that's the approach. That's the approach for me here. This is not anything that's being forced upon anybody to say, see, this is what you should be doing. This should be something for someone who's decided, this is what I want to look into, this is what I want to start trying to apply for myself. It should all be from the point of I'm ready. I want to be able to not have, all these issues that are preventing me from being somebody that's not consumed by XYZ, whatever it is, negativity, materialism, whatever it is in their life that's they're not happy with.
Yep.
So it starts from within. It starts from the individual, myself, to be able to say, okay, I'll do whatever I need to do uh to do what I need to do. I don't even know if that came out right. To do what I need to do in order to be content with myself and show that I'm happy, show that everything that I'm doing is keeping me happy, that I'm doing good, that I'm loving the progress of anything that I have decided to put in front of me as a task, a goal to achieve. This is right now, episode 3.
Right.
We're at the roots of all of this. We have so many big plans. You mentioned on the community.
Yep.
Little by little, man, the brainstorming is there, and I'm loving it, loving it.
Dude, to link a couple of things, I'm so glad you chose that quote, and I had no idea what you're going to choose, so it was kind of like a nice surprise. But earlier you were talking about, I think maybe what I might have been discussing this, I don't remember. Earlier in this freaking episode, you said, a lot of times we go out and we're thinking about what other people are saying about my shoes. I think you said that's what I popped into my mind. Right. And to me, the quote you chose is basically saying, stop thinking about what other people are thinking about. And as soon as you start applying it, you'll realize that those people, they're not thinking about you. You selfish SOB. They're not thinking about you. They're thinking of the same thing you are. Oh man, look at my shoes. You know what I'm saying? And then there's something else that I want to hit about that quote, and it's just because there's an essence of it in there. But we all have to remember, you cannot help someone else until you've helped yourself first. So if you think by any means that this quote is selfish, welcome to the club, because we all thought that in the beginning. But you have to realize we can't help people if we haven't helped ourselves first. If we need help, it's the reason why every freaking medical certification you get, the first thing you do, it doesn't matter if it's basic first aid, CPR, EMT basic, advanced, paramedic, doctor, whatever, they always say assess the scene for safety, right? If you don't assess the scene, you go in there and you get hurt, who are you helping? You're not helping anybody. So when you're talking about this stuff and you're saying, hey, I need to focus on my thoughts, you're learning those processes just like we've been discussing this whole episode of, okay, I need to be a better person. I need to figure out these obstacles, overcome them. And by being a better person, you're actually helping those around you. And something you said earlier, Jay, that I hope nobody ever forgets, is that if you start doing this stuff to get better, it's naturally going to attract others. So you don't have to be out there on the street corner or whatever, and there doesn't need to be some sort of Stoic you billboard, right? It's not like that. It's, okay, this person's succeeding. How can I learn from them? That's exactly how our minds work. And so if you're thinking, okay, this is what I want to practice, whatever, and you start telling people, cool, but also work on your own obstacles. And as soon as you start getting those things down, people are going to notice. They're going to be like, wow, so-and-so, or wow, Jay, or wow, Nate. They're going to be like, dude, you've really, you got over that thing. You've done X, Y, or Z. That was awesome. And you're gonna be like, cool, thanks. And then you're gonna continue on. And then you're gonna start doing it, because success is not something you earn, it's something you attract. So you gotta be out there working for it every freaking day, right? And when you have a lot of success, people are going to come in and swarm around. And how do you have that thing? How do you do this? How do you do that? And then you can start telling them. And that's what I think about your quote. I think it's freaking awesome. I think I don't know, man. The stuff is deep, and I realize we're probably going over time right now, and I'm just like, oh, okay, let's get back to it. Any last thoughts about the quote stuff you wanted to put in there, Jay?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's nothing else to add to it. It's like what we were just talking about. People, this is something that naturally attracts, because when we live in environments where we don't see people that might have this type of perspective of either viewing things or handling things or keeping their cool in certain instances, people
Yeah.
wonder, like, how, why, how come, why, what did you do, how is it? Those are questions that people think. I mean, I know that I have, when I've seen certain individuals just be stone faced, no reaction, no nothing, and you're wondering, like, wow, it's not
Yeah.
affecting this person like I thought, or like I feel like it's affecting me. And
Right.
that's because this individual has control. This person has control. So to see individuals like that, and just to be around individuals like that, you pick up on a sense of, like, oh, this person knows some shit. Like, this person knows about having discipline and having that control over yourself, because there's no one else that
Right.
knows what's going on inside of your head except for yourself. And if you're not able to take a grasp of that and be able to say, no, I can't let this win anymore, and be able to do anything and everything that it takes to be able to say, I no longer allow my fears, my anxiety, my whatever it is, to consume me or take control over me in certain situations. You were mentioning something, and I'm kind of still losing
Mhm.
it here, but I know that it was in regards to the ego, where when you were having that conversation, right? Sorry, that when you were saying about how people
Mhm.
it attracts naturally to other people. I feel that a lot of times when we do things for gratification, to demonstrate to somebody that, we're, you know big bad, or have more power than they
Right.
do, showing dominance in a way.
Yeah.
I feel that that comes from the ego. And when you don't have that in check, that
Yeah.
is received negatively by other people. So that detracts. That people don't like that. So the opposite of that is to be a person that's not
Right.
egotistic, that is not speaking from the ego. And that's why people gravitate to that, because this is not something that's
Right.
normal, unfortunately, in our society anymore, for people to
The
be
one
that way.
uppers and stuff.
And so I think
And
that's part of it. Yeah. I think that's part of it. I think that's something, there's something there with how gravitation of people towards wanting to kind of have conversations like this with us, and have or just be interested in it is because people want to be out of their situations. They don't want to be stuck in whatever nonsense bullshit that they got going on. And people
Right.
for years have been trying
Yep.
to fix themselves somehow with
Philosophy.
self-help books and everything that they've been trying. And yeah, and this is part of it. And for us, it's worked with Stoicism. And it to us, it seems that if everyone were to apply it, it would help. But again, you can't force it
Right.
upon everybody.
You know,
Not
before we
everyone's
call
ready.
this a wrap, I have a very interesting perspective on something you just said. So you said that person with the ego and they're coming in and they got to put themselves on top, right? To me, you talk a lot about things and you label them positive and negative, and I love it because that fits that example so well. So here's a Nathan theory, a Nathanism, we'll call it. Just kidding, it's Stoicism, but it's my idea, right? While you were talking, and I'm this visual person, so when you talk, I'm like trying to visualize what you mean and what you say, and my mind is mapping it out. And you're saying this ego person, and so this ego person, they want to be on top, so they think they're gonna be like that positive, and they put themselves on top, and in their mind they become that positive. But guess what? That makes the other person a negative, right? So you're putting somebody else underneath you. And I was just, man, right? Like that's messed up, and we all have experience with that.
You're
But that's
missing one.
basically
Yeah, you're missing one of the key elements here of Stoicism, ethics.
right. Yep. Now to trip your mind out even more, at least you, Jay, is for one's mind to think they need to become that positive, their first self-image had to be they were the negative. So they thought somebody was above them, and they had to step up and try to put themselves above the other person. Thus, their own self-image is probably not great. Probably not great. And those are the people we got to help too. I'm sure we all have experience with those people. And some of us, we get tired of people doing weird things. But if we remember everything just is, right? It's just one of those things. Just keep moving forward. As long as we're positive. What's up? What's up?
I got a good one. I got a good one. So
Yeah, give it to me, bro.
So this one goes on to the whole realization that I've had with how everybody is completely different, right? Everybody every single individual was raised by whomever was in their life, and based
Yeah.
upon that, they grew up a certain way with either morals, ethics, and all of that factors as far as what makes and builds this person's character. So
Right.
all of those factors you do not know before interacting with a certain individual out there, and then you have to come across them. And for me now, I see that. I always think about that now whenever I see somebody doing some very weird, crazy stuff out there, or saying certain things out of just nowhere, things that I don't understand where they're coming from with that.
Oh,
So what
gotcha.
I think about now is like, yeah, this guy probably lived. It goes back to that. This guy probably lives in like a small town, has not had a lot of
Yeah.
interactions with people like me, and now he's trying to have a conversation about something that I do not know what the hell he's telling me. And it changes, with everybody, all the different types of people that you come across, either from different nationalities, races, the
Right.
economics, status, poor, rich, ghetto, whatever.
Right. Right.
Everyone has their own different way of growing up and the way that they had things normalized for them. And so now they're all just going out into the world and meshing together. And you have to
Yep.
then deal with these people in their different behaviors and their different characteristics because of the way that they grew up in their home. Now they're outside in society and having to have these interactions. Whose way is the right way? Whose way is the wrong way at that point, right?
Right.
That's my
Yep.
question there, where it's like people behave a certain way. It's right for them because it's always been right for them at their home and in places that they've always hung out, convened. But then they go to another place and it's not all right there. Who's right and
Right.
who's wrong? So that's
They're
when I
both
find
right.
myself in certain situations where I'm looking at people and I'm just like, this person just doesn't fit in here. And this is why this person's saying this or that. Or I just have to accept the fact that you just run into all different types of people. And just because one person is acting completely different than everybody else, that does not mean that they're weird or they're off or they're crazy just because whatever it is that they have to say is completely bizarre compared to whatever is
Right.
happening around you. So
Yep.
yeah, that's one of the weird things that I always go back to in my head when I start dealing with people. I'm like, this person still a kid mentally, and I feel that way too. I feel that we're just older looking kids. That's all we are.
That's all we'll ever be, bruh.
Yeah.
That's all we'll ever be. Yep.
Until death.
All right. Until death do us part. Yeah, buddy. All right, dude. So we calling this a wrap?
Yeah, I think it's time to wrap this one up.
All right, y'all. That's a wrap. You heard Jay. Let's talk about the next episode. We like to do a little interlude to that. And from what I heard from Jay, I think, Jay, is it time that we get into the Rudyard Kipling poem?
That's gonna be all you right there, trying to not school me on this. I'm gonna do my research before that, but I want to hear you dissect that piece by piece.
Man, and see, I don't want it to be like that. I don't want to be a school thing. Do I have the poem almost all the way memorized? Yeah. Does that matter? Not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. And even if so for everybody else, the next episode 4 of the Street Stoic podcast, we are going to be discussing and diving into Rudyard Kipling. Yes, the man, the myth, the legend who authored the Jungle Book. We are going to go over and into and all around this poem called If. The poem is called If. And if you want to look into it, just like Jay's doing, go ahead and be awesome if you did, and we all have our ideas. For this one, it won't matter if you've never heard it until we go through it, because we'll discuss it together. Jay and I will probably take turns like reading different stanzas of it and then just asking the other person, yo, what do you think? And dude, it's so deep and crazy and interluded that we're all going to have these different ideas, and it's so much fun because our different ideas help build that bigger picture of what this could mean and how much stoicism is placed into this poem. It's unbelievable. And Rudyard Kipling, by the way, is not known as a Stoic. I don't think he's known as even a philosopher. I think he's just an author. And
he just wrote a really damn good poem.
My goodness, did he ever. Anyways, I'm not going to ruin it. I'm excited. We're all going to talk about it. It'd be sweet. Maybe if we, I don't know, man, we'll have to talk about it later, but we should start thinking about guests and things like this where we have like this huge, it's not a script, but it's an outline to follow, like this poem, and just getting these diverse ideas of what they mean and this open platform talking about it, I think would be phenomenal.
I agree. I
Yeah, buddy.
all in the works, right? All in the plans, everything that we have in mind, and just one step at a time. One step at a
Yeah,
time.
buddy. That's it. All right, y'all. Until next time on episode 4.
Peace. Much love to you.
Later.